Well, good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of Friday Morning Live. Today's topic is inside FAI's disaster command post, but also we got two special guests that'll be along for the ride today. So today's May 23rd, 2025, getting ready for the holiday this weekend. So hope all you have plans and enjoy family and friends and burn a hot dog or two, as they say. So we're going to kick this thing off. There is yours truly, Dave Newell. Again, thank you for being here this morning. Just a reminder, web-based learning here at FAIA. Get on the education tab under the FAI.com homepage and see what the upcoming classes are for the next few weeks. And then I know most of you on this call have already made your plans to join us at convention, June 18th through the 20th at the Orlando World Center Marriott. So if you hadn't, there's still room to register. Unfortunately, the hotel is booked, but they have overflow hotels for you to certainly stay and join us at another great event, the Road to Success. And so a lot of good things planned for that week. Hopefully you can join us. If you've not registered, certainly get online and register today. So let's just kick this show off because each week we've talked about hurricane preparedness leading up to June 1, just a few days away, a week or two away. And the predictions for the upcoming season, 2025, 17 named storms, 9 will develop into hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes anticipating making landfall. So just keep that in mind. I wish I had 2024. I should have kept that one in this slide deck to compare of what was predicted and what we ended up last year. But maybe I'll do that for next week. So, but that's what we're looking at, folks. And I thought I'd throw something out. You many on this call already probably know this, but back in 2022, right at the end of May, we had a tropical storm develop and come through Florida, Tropical Storm Alex. It was on May 29th. So there's still some opportunities, some options there. Hopefully we don't see it prior to June 1, but there's always that possibility we may see something brewing out there. So as we're going to talk throughout today's presentation, hurricane preparedness is really the key to our focus today, and certainly any other show we do in May, which will be next week, will be our last show for May. So what do we have to offer here at FAIA? Disaster Command Post is where we house all of our resources for hurricanes, tropical storms, things that agents need to be aware of as they prepare for these events. So it's all housed there. You see on your screen what it looks like. It's under resources and it's disaster command post. And so it has a catastrophe guide, helps agents prepare their business for a hurricane. Disaster supply checklist, which is a great thing to have of what agents need to have on hand as they prepare for June 1. And then certainly a hurricane tracking chart. Produced by the Hurricane Center in Miami. And that is always a helpful tool. Many agencies and many local municipalities have these type things. So many of them use those, but if you need one, it's certainly there and available to you. We talk an awful lot about being responsive after an event, right? And certainly generated power is one of those things. If we lose power due to outages and down power lines. So establish alternative communication. We had Hurricane Michael several years ago come through the Panhandle, and the cell towers all went down. So we at FAI went out and bought a lot of satellite phones, and we were deploying those to our members over in the Panhandle so they can communicate. And so just keep that in mind as you look at being prepared for hurricanes. And prepare and manage claims. We know many of you on the call have been through this, but that is a big deal after the storm. Some of it starts pre-storm where you're talking to clients about what kind of coverages they have and what they need to do to protect their asset, their home or business. And so prepare and manage claims is certainly something that you can prepare for, but depending on where the storm hits and how big an event it is, could stress the team. Many of you on this call already know that, but just a reminder. So, agent's memo of loss. That's just a helpful little tool and document to maybe help you, take a loss if you're doing that. If you're not referring your client directly to the carrier, which most do in these situations, but if you decide you want to take a first notice of loss, certainly it's something to help in that process. There's certainly something in there called a claims log to log in all this stuff. Understand, some of this may be a little out of date because of technology, but certainly if you want to go old school, that's there available to you. What is and isn't covered. There are certain aspects of our business, especially after a storm of, is it covered? Should I file a claim? What do I do in this certain circumstances? Hurricane coverage at a glance kind of gives you some roadmap to that process, so you can take a look at that. And then the catastrophe information form, organize claims, disseminate the correct personnel. That is part of this hurricane preparedness and planning that we're going to talk about today. What does the phone tree look like? What is the responsibility of X or Y within your organization when it comes to pre and post storm, right? And so those are the things you need to be talking about and preparing for as we lead up to the 2025 hurricane season. The sample letter to educate consumers on what to expect after filing a claim. That's part of the process, whether we're talking to our newest partner, Paul Davis, or an established partner like Heritage. What are the expectations? What are the expectations you provide your client? What are the expectations that the carrier or the restoration company is providing the insured after an event? And I think that has a lot to do with people's expectations of how that claim process goes. If you're upfront and you communicate and you provide good, solid foundational information, I think it goes much smoother. If sometimes that you don't feel like some of that information is fruitful for the client, then it leads to miscommunication, which means to just not really a good claim experience. So certainly a sample letter to help educate your consumers. Many of you probably have those letters, but if you need one, we certainly have it in the disaster command post. And then post-loss report letters to insured after receipt of the loss. If you want to document that back out to the client, that's a way to do that. I know some of that stuff is done automatically through your agency management system, but if you need a little assistance there, certainly it's there for your review. Collect and protect, right? FEMA produced infographic to protect important documents. You need to remind everybody to do the same thing. Pictures, documents, save certain things, keep them off site, put them on a thumb drive, whatever those things are that you can use to help save and document a claim. Let's do it. Flood map. We certainly experienced a lot of flood last season, right? There was a lot more flood activity than wind. And so the flood part of our business and how that's handled, certainly it's going to be interesting this year with some of the changes with FEMA and NFIP. So we hope, knock on wood, I'm knocking on wood if you can hear that, but we don't really have an active hurricane season like they're predicting. But certainly if we do, we need to be prepared for it. And then Hurricane Insurance 411. It's a brochure, how to prepare for the storm and the claim process. So if you would like to take a look at those, they're in the command center, and we can certainly produce those for you if that's something that you need for your agency. 6 things to know before a disaster. A video that covers what to know before a hurricane. Certainly, you're free to use this as a promotional guide to some of your clients, your members of your team, just so they prepare. Trusted Choice, which is our brand for independent insurance agents, and it's an infographic peace after the storm, what to expect. So, and then the last thing is a one-pager that explains what the expectations are, as we said earlier, about when you have a hurricane claim, because it is different, right? It is different. It's treated different. It looks different, and certainly it feels different. And so preparing not only your team, but certainly your policyholders with this one-pager could certainly be helpful. If you need it, it's there for you. Trusted Choice Disaster Relief Fund. You know, some on this call may over the years have taken part in this, whether it was volunteering, whether it was using some of the resources, whether it was financial assistance for you or your team or your agency. And so it's there to assist. And I will tell you, there's a lot of buzz around Florida for sure, but in other states, we certainly helped our friends up in Georgia and North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, that had some damage through some storms. But the Trusted Choice Disaster Relief Fund is a good resource for those that find themselves. This is for independent agents. This is for your team. This is for people that are in the industry that work as agents. This is not for policyholders. So just keep that in mind. This always comes up, and it came up again last year because of the activity with the flood. Water versus wind damage, right? And so this is a guide to help you better understand some of those nuances in those type of claim situations. I mean, I do know for a fact that many of our carrier partners have kind of figured this riddle out, but there's always challenges, right? When it comes to wind versus rain, and then of course you throw in the policy form, and then the games begin, so to speak, where you got to try to figure out what happened, when it happened, and what caused the actual damage to the home or business. So. And then the last thing on this page is wind-driven rain. It's certainly something that's been discussed. It's outlined in many policy forms that have been adopted in the state of Florida, but that is always a conversation in and about any type of wind activity, whether it was wind-driven rain that caused the damage, and we won't go into the nuances of what has to happen in order for that coverage to apply. Hurricane deductibles. This came out several years ago where there was some discussion about how deductibles applied, especially when we had multiple storms. So there's some information about how hurricane deductibles are applied here in the state of Florida, what the rules of the road are. So if you need that information, certainly use the the Hurricane Disaster Command Post, and that information will be in there. Just again, some other nuances about that. And I say this every week, you got to dust off the manuals. I was talking to one of our guests yesterday about this presentation today, and we talked about making sure your phone tree, your list, your access to your carrier partners, those claim numbers are up to date. I know routinely they don't change, but there are times that they do because systems are being updated, or they want to reroute calls to a certain segment of the claim department for hurricanes versus non-hurricane related claims. So just make sure that you have those information updated for your team, and certainly if you're going to help your customer report claims, they need the correct information. You don't want your customer calling back and saying, "Oh gosh, that number is no longer in service," or there's some disruption to it. So, emergency operations centers, we rely upon them. Every municipality, all 67 counties, has an emergency operations center, big or small. But certainly, we suggest that you have those links at least internally on your website to use as a reference. They update those sites pretty routinely, certainly after the governor press conferences. A lot of that information is updated based on what was said during those press conferences. Division of Consumer Services, DFS, A lot of great information on that site that is constantly updated during, and post storm. So that is something that you can use as a tool for you and your team. And then the OIR certainly has resources. A lot of the carriers, one in particular, or the one on our call, not in particular, but the one on our call today, they're asked a lot of times to provide documentation after an event. So carriers are constantly providing information to the OIR, and that is normally shared by the commissioner and others about how this event is going, where the claims are, how many, so on and so forth, so they can use that to try to provide the information to the consumer in a pretty timely manner. And I mentioned it earlier, Trusted Choice Disaster Relief Fund. Certainly, this has helped along the way and helped with agencies, agent staffing, particular, that have find themselves with unrecoverable losses or had some extra expenses that they needed covered. And the Trusted Choice Disaster Relief Fund is certainly that great resource for you. So, well, without further ado, I got through my slides, and we want to bring in our friends from Paul Davis Restoration. Just a little preview. Paul Davis Restoration is the newest FMS preferred partner, FAIA Member Services preferred partner. We have them as part of our team now. They're on our website. They'll be part of a group of preferred providers that is available to FAIA members. Many of you may already have relationships with Paul Davis around the state of Florida. Funny story, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. I texted my brother this morning, and he reminded me that he went to high school with Paul Davis, and his uncle is Paul Davis. So just a funny story about the name Paul Davis. But I know many of you it's recognizable. It's been out there. It's certainly been a proud partner for many carriers and agencies alike. So, but let's bring in, I had a little issue with the slides this morning, but Kathy Wilson, good morning.
Good morning, team. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Then, Kyler is on, but he's not going to speak this morning, and I couldn't get the slide back to the original. So, Kathy, remind me.
It's Kevin Cassiola.
Yep,
will be
Kevin, good morning. I'm sorry. I'm looking at your thing. Kevin, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you for having us.
There we go. There's Kevin. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
So I'm going to go ahead and just put that next slide up. So, yes, as I said, Florida Association of Insurance Agents, Paul Davis, is part of our preferred provider program. We're excited to join. Have you guys join the ranks. Look forward to working with you and certainly providing information about what you do and how you do it and your expertise in this area. So, Kathy, let's just kick it off. And again, I said about my high school, my brother's high school buddy, his uncle is actually Paul Davis. So, but let's just talk a little bit about your company and what our members can expect from Paul Davis providing a resource for a customer in need.
Thank you. Appreciate the warm welcome. We're excited to be the preferred partner in restoration and full service reconstruction with the FAIA. I can tell you that it's been an exciting journey understanding what your members do. And I have to first, I could have a moment of silence or just a thankful prayer, because at the end of the day, our agents are the front line. You folks are receiving those calls during the time of need, whether it's just a dishwasher overflowing or we've got the river of St. John's coming into someone's home. So thank you for all you do for our homeowners out there, because it takes a village to get them back to pre-loss condition. And you're right, there was a Mr. Paul Davis. He came from really humble roots, David. He literally, was an agent. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but that was his first exposure in the insurance industry as an agent, moved up the ranks and ran a brokerage firm as well. He then took that knowledge and his experience in the construction industry to create our organization, which today is 10,000 members strong. We have over 360 offices nationally, and that doesn't include our Canadian friends that are also part of our organization. So we just keep growing, every year. We've got about 8 of the 10 top direct repair programs and probably 10 more sitting there waiting to be launched. So we're definitely a national presence. But I want to talk a little bit more about Florida. We have this thing called an NPS score, David. Do you guys know what that means on your end?
No, I'd be curious to learn more about it.
Yeah, so it's a net promoter score. It is one question that's given to the homeowner at the end of a job or at the end of picking up their product. So if they pick up their iPhone at the Apple store, they get one question. Would you come back again? Would you use this person again? And in the nation, we sit at a 73. And just to give you a little bit of background, we talked about Apple. They're sitting at a 61. Chick-fil-A is sitting at a 58, and Google's sitting at a 58 as well. In the state of Florida, our net promoter score average is 76.
Okay.
So a little bit of background on
Kathy, it sounds like you guys are doing something right?
Absolutely. So just a little bit of background on what we do. If you want to go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about the core services that we bring to the table. And I think this is really important because we're here for the insured's time of need. We're here to address any of those concerns, whether it's as a consultant piece or whether we're in true high capacity modes. So all those water losses, the fire damages that are happening, your commercial clients that are dealing with situations, your mold situations, and in your high capacity catastrophes, we're here. One of the things that, David, you mentioned earlier was preparing, right? Preparing for a situation, right? In our world, that means not just knowing who to call, but it also means understanding what we need to bring to the table in those modes. So for example, when we had all the catastrophes with Helene and Milton, Kevin's going to talk about them a little more. One of the things that we did was literally shipping out Starlink devices so that as the generators are, getting on board, they're going to have internet and can receive assignments. In some of our offices, we actually had fuel cells dropped, so that as adjusters or as carriers were coming into our strike zone offices, like the Tampa and Pinellas County area, they could fuel up at our buildings. So there's things like that you have to prepare for months in advance before something rolls in. And so I like that you said that, David, being prepared, right?
Well, that's the name of the game, right, Kathy? In your business and our business, and certainly every independent agency has to prepare, whether you do it on an annual basis, like it sounds like you guys do, but certainly for independent agents, we certainly talk about it in May, but probably that process starts probably January, February, actually thinking about and talking to some of their resources to make sure, they're up to date. So.
Absolutely. I mean, when COVID hit back in the 20s, 19, 20, 21, whenever it was that we shut down, we had already protocols for biohazard and trauma cleanup. So it was just a matter of not dusting those off, but re-engaging them, modifying them so that they could be used in deployment, right? So we're the best at preparing for this, but we're not there just for the cats. We're there on the daily basis. So please come to us and consult with us. We're happy to get you through whatever comes our way, guys. Absolutely.
And that, Kathy, that leads us to the next slide, because that was part of this whole process that you talked about of what we went through for you guys becoming our newest preferred provider for FAI members. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, getting vetted was probably one of the things that we were most impressed with your organization. Not only did we field a slew of questions about how prepared we are, but we talked about the national coverage. Let's talk about Florida. We covered 100% of the zip codes in Florida. That means there is not one nook and cranny that we can't get to in a time of need. We can contact that insured within 15 minutes or less. We can be on site within 2 hours or less. In a catastrophe, you're going to have a little bit more lag time, but it's never going to be 6 weeks. As a matter of fact, Kevin will talk to this a little bit more, but one of our offices that was in the strike zone, they actually were keeping calls every 24 hours or 48 hours asking the homeowner if they still wanted to be on the waiting list. Had they been taken care of by someone else, their father, their mother came in with a wetback, whatever it might be, or did they still need to stay on the list? And that appreciation, that consumer advocacy went really strong for us, David. And that's why we were able to prioritize. And that's what we're going to bring to the table to your members. There's 27 locations here in Florida. Like I said, we've got every nook and cranny covered, David.
27. Wow. Yep. From Escambia to Monroe County, as they say, right, Kathy?
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's the wonderful news about, our organization. Each owner puts their heart and soul into this, and this is a legacy state, guys. So we know that Mr. Paul Davis, heck, your cousin went to high school with someone there, your brother did. So in Jacksonville, where we first started, that was our first zip code. And then friends and family bought into the organization, and those owners have sold their offices to their sons, their friends, their cousins. And so it's a legacy state. So
Gotcha.
On the phone with us right now, we have this amazing human. His name is Kevin Casiola. He is part of the leadership team that helped organize this partnership with FAIA. So with that said, Kevin, I'm going to hand over the floor so you can talk a little bit more about what else we do and what the experience is enhanced by.
Kevin, welcome. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Look forward to hearing some of this. As I lead up to this, part of this discussion, the vetting that Kathy talked about, was certainly the responsiveness to not only the member agencies that are on this call and others in our organization, but certainly their policyholders. So walk us through what this enhanced experience looks like from Paul Davis.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, for having us on today and allowing us to be a sponsor. We're super excited, as Kathy mentioned. I changed some of my notes just listening to your intro. It was interesting what you said, because obviously the agents want to know what's best for their clients. So Kyler and I were talking earlier this morning about speed and leveraging speed and understanding how the process go. Speed isn't so much necessarily the conversation about getting things done quicker, which it is quicker, but it also is understanding the process to make it smoother, right? So you mentioned about notifying your clients and keeping them informed. We had a particular client specifically in our area during the hurricane that had 3 different claims for one personal property. They had a wind claim that had a different carrier for. They had a fire claim from the hurricane, from the water that came in that created a fire in their house. So they had 3 separate carriers on this one property. And the speed that we did with the knowledge that we had with going through the process and the cycling of everything, we made sure that we took we didn't go too far, right? We didn't go demoing everything because we don't want to disrupt the fire area, but we did enough where we cleaned up the water in the one area to know that that claim was taken care of. And then we covered the roof to make sure the wind was covered. So we know exactly how to work with the carriers and what the carriers are looking for, so we don't damage the claim process, because we want to make sure that gets done properly. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, and then leading to the experience, the training that your team and others on your, the franchises here that are involved, the training that goes along with that. Kevin, talk to us about that and what you guys do to ramp people up.
So the beginning of the training is we have a 6-week program to become an owner of Paul Davis. So we have to go through excruciating training through IICRC and CE classes and whatnot to make sure we know what we're doing, to make sure we know how to run our business, to make sure we know how to deal with the carriers. So just alone to become a Paul Davis franchise, you're going through a 6-week process just to make sure that you're qualified to become a member of this group, because it wants to be an elite group. When that takes place and you get the nod to be an owner, all of our people are also trained at their specific level of what they do. We have mitigation technicians that are trained with, again, IICRC. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically in the governing board of what our industry takes care of to make sure everyone's trained in that field. And we also have, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then we talk about, Kathy talked about the Net Promoter Score, living up to the legacy of Paul Davis, right? What the vision is. And so that creates a little better experience, right? If you partner with Paul Davis.
Yes, the Net Promoter Score, as you mentioned, I mean, we want to be there for everyone. You know, we help people in the time of need, right? That's our tagline is we help people at an extraordinary time of need. So what we're looking for with our staff, going back to the training, is making sure they understand how to handle someone's basically worst day.
Yep.
They're still going to take Johnny to school. They're still got to get to work. They may have a mother-in-law that has to go to the doctor. And we just want to make sure that our people are trained to do what they're doing, to make sure that they also understand the care of what we need to do to take care of people's homes in their time of need.
You know, you see it on the slide, folks, 10,000 strong. They're here to serve 24/7, 365, whether it's in hurricane season like we're about to be in or the non-cat season. There's still claims. There's still need for, restoration services, reconstruction services. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But as we transition, Kevin, talk to us a little bit about your experience with Helene and Milton as you guys deployed your resources throughout the state of Florida.
Yes, sir. So I live here in Sarasota, Florida, and I have a franchise here in Sarasota. We also have a second franchise Derek and I bought from his cousin that his grandfather started. So it's the third generation owner in Pinellas County. For one, I know all of you have lived through the storm and it's not fun. If you left, you're probably blessed to leave because it's not fun for the first 48 hours going through it. But you had mentioned earlier in your initial speak was about the plan. So the plan starts long. We revise our plan every single year, every single month. We're talking about it, knowing that a catastrophe is coming up. We're still dealing with people that have had their claims and whatnot and their permits and whatnot. But now we're coming up against another hurricane season, so we got to deal with that. But we do have the ability to get the plan with the CAT team. So we have a certified CAT team who generates the leads for the other offices that need to come down and assist the local offices. We call it the strike zone office. So I believe we had over 500 different Paul Davis employees down in the CAT area just for Sarasota, Tampa, and Pinellas area to assist. So planning for that is extraordinary planning, like you said, making sure that we are ready to promote, to dispatch the people that need to go to the areas they need to go to. Like Kathy said, we have the generators, the phone service, the links coming up, so we make sure that we can communicate with the other offices to make sure that they're going to the right places, because some people are coming as far as, Philadelphia, California, New York, or Louisiana, as close as Louisiana. So we do have a large ability to get people in to help people as quick as possible during these particular storms.
Yeah, to that point, Kevin, you have to have a plan, right?
Yes, sir.
You all have to make sure you execute on your plan, because you're not going to be able to provide the resources to policyholders and agents if you guys are not situated and bringing in the resources needed. So, it's not just the policyholders, not just the agent. It's certainly the restoration companies and the carriers that are also doing a lot of planning pre-storm. One of the things you see on your screen, folks, is really what Paul Davis does. There's certainly a restoration company, but they're also a construction company that can help restore your home or business after a claim. So Kevin, talk to us about this. And where was this, Kevin?
This is one of Kyler's, the jobs. Cody's his brother who handles the construction side. I don't particularly know the exact claim of this one, but the reason Cody wanted us to show this was the ability to communicate with a lot of people that don't live here. So sometimes sometimes the carrier will pay for ALE if the homeowner's here, but a lot of times we have a lot of residents in Florida don't live in Florida. So we have the ability of communicating with them through photographs and communicating with them digitally to make sure that they can go through the process and pick out their materials for their home.
And again, maybe it is well known for some, but I think we need to really highlight this, that most of probably what you are familiar with Paul Davis is certainly on the personal homeowner side, but they have a whole division that plans and helps with commercial properties and commercial businesses. So that is something, Kevin, that certainly can help and agents can refer you all for that side of the house too, right?
Yes, sir. So going back to having a specific CAT team, we have a specific commercial team that helps all of our commercial clients. We can help our commercial clients by creating MSAs. We can help them with emergency plans. During a CAT situation, the commercial team takes precedent over the CAT team and make sure that the commercial client's taken care of so they can work with the CAT team to disperse people directly to those commercial clients, because we understand the commercial property needs to get up online if possible, as quick as possible, to keep them running and keep the business creating income.
Yeah, because that's certainly great. So keep in mind, folks that are on this call or listening as we recorded this, Paul Davis does have a dedicated, specific commercial team that you can work with on your commercial clients, whether it's in CAT season or non-CAT season. So always think about that as you go forward. Kevin, access to free inspections. Is really anything free anymore, Kevin? I'm just kidding. But I know you provide these services, and so tell us what a property restoration consultant does if somebody wanted to bring them aboard and have a review.
I believe Kathy wanted to close on this. I'm going to let her take the reins. Yes, sir.
No, it's fine, Kevin. You're doing a great job. I'm all good.
No, he's got to go back to doing inspections, so we understand.
Yes, he's got to go address some needs. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. No, but as a team, I think, David, you figured out that we really work well together as a team. Every owner is interested and engaged, with their communities. We have so many aspects to our business. We could spend 10 hours on the phone talking through it. So just to summarize it, one of the commitments that we made to the FAIA as a member benefit is that we will work with your homeowner to help them make those decisions. One of the things that you brought to the table as a question mark earlier in your slides was, should I file a claim? That is a big question right now in our industry. We've had some reform that came in, as you know, and our insureds are much smarter now, and our insureds are more cautious about filing those assignments. Let's just use an example for a moment that maybe perhaps they filed a claim with their carrier of last resort many moons ago. Their premiums have gone up. They can't find another carrier to be able to even write them. You finally found someone that's a good quality and your insured is happy and it's a small loss. They don't know if they're even going to meet deductibles. In those type of cases, we're here for you guys to help consult and address those needs. Maybe if the loss is small enough that it's going to be barely over the deductible, they just want to handle that themselves. You now have a vetted partner that can actually assist with those type of situations. And because of our brand and because of our good name, we treat a self-pay insured as if they were coming from the carrier. And trust me, the guidelines are tight when we're working with our carriers. So you're going to receive the same exceptional service. And that consultation will be free to get things rolling, to make that determination first if they need to file a claim. I hope that helps clarify that, David.
It does. And folks, I'm sure you heard Kathy, this is a member benefit because they partnered with FAIA as a preferred provider for our team here. So just keep that in mind as you look at some of the resources that Paul Davis Restoration is providing. But you're getting some of this access because they partnered with us with FAIA.
Absolutely.
Continuing education courses, Kathy, Paul Davis events. We have a lot of people on this call that are part of local boards around the state of Florida.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that. Would you be willing to go to a local event and put on a CE course or a educational course for those members in those locales?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are known as the property restoration experts. You see that all over our logo, and we take that to heart. Paul Davis has 27 continuing education classes that are constantly being rotated and refilled and cleaned up. Right now, we have one that we're going to start hosting exclusive to the FAIA. We'll have to get it on your calendar, David.
Yep.
It's July 8th at 9 a.m. There'll be a QR code, a save to date registration that's going out with the FAIA, and it's the cat is out of the bag, and it'll be focused on preparing for catastrophes exclusive to the FAIA members.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we definitely want to get that on the calendar, folks. We'll get notices out. I'm sure our comms team is already working on some of that stuff, but we want to make sure, because, part of my responsibility here is education. So we want to make sure we get that notice out. So, Kathy, as we round out your time, this is it, pauldavis.com. There's a number there, folks. There'll be a lot more information that we'll provide the members on this.
We'll
to know how to reach you. We certainly say it each week. We like questions. So if you have questions, pose them in here. If I don't get to them before we sign off today, we'll certainly get Kathy and Kevin and the team answer those questions directly to agents. But certainly, if you have them, post them and we'll get to them. And again, Kathy, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the partnership. Thank you for today as we kind of put you out there to our members. I know we'll see you in a couple weeks in Orlando. So many more of you will meet Kathy and Kevin and others, whoever they're bringing as part of the team. But long story short, they're the newest member of FMS preferred providers. For those that program has been around a while, and it's a big deal to us, and certainly we're happy to have Paul Davis as part of our team now. So thanks, Kathy.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, Kevin, for all your hard work in getting this pushed
Kevin,
through. Appreciate
you all.
Thank you, David.
All right. So thank them. And then now we're going to bring in Heritage Insurance. Heritage has been part of FMS Preferred Providers for a long time as a carrier partner. So want to bring in Ruben Delgado. Most of his close friends, like Ernie, call him Buddy. So good morning, sir.
How are you? Good morning, Dave. Good to be here.
Yeah. So as we bring you in, we heard about the restoration side, right? Let's hear from the carrier side, how you guys prepare and advise and consult your agent partners throughout the state of Florida as you lead up. But before we get into that, Buddy, let's just talk a little bit about your background and certainly, like some of us on this call, how you fell into insurance, right? Most of us didn't go to FSU, the number one risk management school in the country, to get their degree and then go into insurance. But you had a background in law enforcement, and now you're at the center of CAT planning for Heritage. So tell us a little bit about you, buddy.
I did. So my career was at Tampa Police Department for 25 years. And I've known Ernie just through mutual friends for a long time. So when I was getting ready to retire, he called me and told me I was too young to retire and that I had to come do something else. He brought me on. And even though I'm a Florida guy, but you're right with the Florida State program. So he brought me on and I got there right before Ian. It was about 2 or 3 months prior to Ian landfall in 22. So I had a chance to kind of observe the insurance side of the hurricane process. In law enforcement, we had a similar, planning session for us as far as response in the city. So I was able to kind of talk with Ernie about that and kind of bring some things together. And here we are a few years later, and we're, just kind of getting our insurance CAT response plan tweaked. And again, it's a year-long process for us. It's nothing, like you said earlier, you don't just dust it off the shelf, come June 1st. It's something that we constantly train with, we constantly plan and evaluate to make it better each and every year.
So, on the slide, as we transition to the next one, your background is lent to planning, logistics, communications, what the stakeholders are. It's just a little different from the police department versus an insurance response, right? But some of those same elements you've taken forward from 25 years of service to the local folks in Tampa, now to the state of Florida through an insurance company. Right, buddy?
Yeah, no doubt. It's, when I was a little unsure of how that process was going to go, leaving the public service side and going to insurance. But it's eerie similar when you think about the processes of what happens, even in the claim process. It's eerie similar to how, a call for service on the street and how the police handle a call to how an insurance company handles a claim. That process is pretty similar in the insurance, in the CAT planning. The same thing, we've got our CAT plan where it's an all hands on deck. As we speak now, we're finishing up our training with every single employee, Ernie's got this CAT certification program in place for the company. So every employee is getting trained on how to handle, first notice of loss calls.
Yep.
So when we do deploy, again, it's an all hands on deck. So people that are in marketing or legal, chances are they're going to be answering phone calls during our hurricane.
Okay, and you mentioned you started right around Hurricane Ian, and you've learned a lot, and certainly we've had unfortunately many events since then. But we talk about insurance villages. Certainly, for many on the call, it's not the villages that get a lot of the buzz in news media. This is a area of after a storm, post event, where the Department of Financial Services, OIR. And if you go to any of those, many carriers are housed there. So consumers, policyholders, and others can reach them all in one place. Buddy, talk to us why these are important and why agents need to engage in this conversation about insurance villages.
Yeah, so the insurance villages are, for us, we go to every single one of them. They're critical. And I think the governor's office and DFS do a great job at putting those on. Like you said, getting all of the resources in one place. When a catastrophe hits and somebody, pretty much loses everything, sometimes they don't even know who to ask for help. Having everybody in that one, and if you've seen them, if you've been there, it's literally, FEMA's there, insurance companies there, DFS is there. Everybody's in one place, one location, and kind of just there for the policyholder to help out. Now, one thing that we're doing at Heritage too, and we did this after Ian, is that we are doing our own outside of the DFS. We're doing those as well. But in addition to those, we're setting up our own insurance villages for strictly our policyholders, sending out notifications, working with our agents to try to get our insurers to sign up to come in and have some face-to-face interaction with our adjusters, so we can get their processes and their claims processed properly.
So let me dissect that a little bit for the folks on this call and me personally. So say you have the event, right? It happened in and around Southwest Florida, and the insurance village that is part of the Department of Financial Services and the governor's office is in X area, right? Are you saying, buddy, that you also have kind of a separate village, maybe in a different locale for policyholders to come to you all directly there as well?
Yeah, so what we see is, DFS and the governors, they're very quick to set up those villages, right? And they want to provide help as fast as possible. So within 3, 4, 5 days of a storm hitting, as soon as they can find a proper location, they're setting up these villages. And at that time in the claim process, there's a lot of things that are still unknown in the claim process. What we have found for us that's been very effective is that if we do some analytical work onto where our claims are, where our open claims are still. Okay. And then we continue to have, this conversation with the policyholders, a face-to-face opportunity with a village where they can sign up for a time slot. If they want their agent there, of course, we work with the agents. And so we just try to identify the best way possible to get the help to the policyholders. And that doesn't run exactly when those DFS insurance villages happen.
Okay.
It may be a month after, maybe 2 months after. With Ian, we were holding them 9 months after the storm, right? Just to get some of these closed.
Buddy, how do agents access that information? How do they learn about those separate villages, like you say, a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road?
Yeah, so our sales and marketing team, they're out there. I'm sure most of the agents on this call here work with them very well. We push out that information through social media. We push it out through notifications. We can certainly send it to all of our agents because any help we can get getting the communication to our policyholders is what we're trying to achieve.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, folks, on the call, just be aware of that's what Heritage does. And so if you represent Heritage and you have a claim situation, and certainly it's down the road post-event, these are things that they like to do. And it sounds like, buddy, you've had some good results from doing these, correct?
Yeah, so we've seen some good results in doing it. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from policyholders
Okay.
doing it. And one good thing I will say, in Ian, we did them quite a bit. When Milton and Helene happened, some of the changes that we did in our CAT planning process, some of the QA work that we've added into our plan, ideally when we put these out, hopefully nobody needs to come here, right? Because they're getting the help they need up front, and we're getting those closure rates higher. But again, it's something we're always going to offer our policyholders. It's something that if a big storm happens outside of what the state does, we're going to do some additional work on top of that to make sure the policyholders have a chance.
You just mentioned QA. You've had some successes. You've learned some things, right? As you do, I'm sure you guys do post-mortem, just like everybody, all of us do post-storm. So what are some of the QA successes that you learned post Helene and Milton?
Yeah, so that's one thing Ernie is really focused on when we talk about our CAT plan. The QA process is really robust, and that's leading up to that's our QA process in our daily reports, and now especially in our CAT. Again, we bring in extra internal people to help with our QA process just to make sure that we're hitting those state requirements, right? That our customer service quality is where it should be. We don't differentiate. What our expectations are on our daily side with our adjusters is the same expectation we expect any TPA partner that we have handling claims during a hurricane. So the QA process for us is very important, and then we're seeing some of those results now with what he has put in place with Helene and Milton on some of those QA scores. Okay.
Yeah, many may not know this, but my son is a field adjuster for Heritage, and so he has told me the stories about the QA process there. So interesting. But all right. So we talk about year-round hurricane preparedness. From your standpoint, buddy, I know planning, preparing, and responding. I mean, you were used to that for 25 years from the Tampa Police Department. Why is it important? Why are we telling agents that maybe you should be looking at this on a constant basis, just instead of just this time of year? Why is it important?
Yeah, it's we plan, like I think I said earlier, we pretty much are year-round planning for this, and then once we get our feet under us after a storm, and it's somewhat back to the daily operations, we're constantly evaluating what went right, what didn't go so well, what can we improve, what kind of technologies can we bring in to help make some things better. But everybody, like Mike Tyson said, man, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? So you got to have plans, and you got to have some contingency plans. We saw that last year, where we had some of our employees get personally affected by these storms here in the Tampa Bay area. Right. Those were things that we had to pivot right on the move. So if you're not constantly in that mode of planning and preparing and expecting the unexpected, you could be set back pretty good. And then that's why we're constantly looking at this. We're constantly what-ifing scenarios, testing our processes, trying to break them just to see what we can do a little bit better.
Yeah, and then that leads us. So how can agents prepare better for policyholders and working with a carrier partner like Heritage or others? How can agents on this call prepare for this next event, whether it's a planned or an unplanned, as you said?
Yeah, and I think we all share the same goal, right? Is we're trying to make this process, which could be devastating for somebody, as smooth as possible to get them back to the pre-storm situation they were in. And working with our sales and marketing team, like I said, we push out a lot of information. One thing we're going to do this year is a lot of proactive communication ahead of the storms. So if that information is getting to the agents and they can help push that out, that's one great thing that they can do. Updating contact information for us is big. The more we advance in our technologies, the more communications, the text messages, the things that we want to send out. So having correct contact information would be great. Like I said, the pre-storm communications are going to go, post-storm communications are going to go out. So if you would just look out for those, make sure. And then if you have any issues that come up or any questions from policyholders, please pass those along. We want some feedback. as well. And then just like we do insurance villages, Dave, on the back end, what we're doing now, we're in the planning stage of this, and this is something that agents may be able to help us with, is that we're going to do some pre-storm events, pre-storm workshops, just to put some more information in front of our policyholders, answer any questions, make sure that they understand what their policies are. So those things, you're going to see that coming here in the next few weeks, hopefully, in certain locations around Florida. We're every coastal county, we're in obviously 16 states, but everywhere in Florida, we're gonna do some of these workshops around the state.
So, buddy, with that in mind, do you encourage agents to be part of that process?
Yeah, I would love to have those conversations. Yeah, I think that's a perfect fit for us when we're talking about how do we get closer to our policyholders, how do we get this information to our policyholders, so they're just as prepared as we are when the storm hits. That the preparation on their end is just as important as how we're going to be able to respond to this. So, simple things as making sure maybe they trim their trees or reminding them to get their trees trimmed away from their house prior to a storm hitting.
Right.
There's a lot of little things that we can pass on to the policyholders, and working with the agents would be ideal on that. So when we do put these together, we'll make sure our sales and marketing team communicates with all the agents, all of our agency partners. That way, if somebody has any ideas or any suggestions, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I think the more, as I talked earlier, the more you communicate, the more you work together, the better the experience is, setting up those expectations. And agents do very good. If you're going to have an event and you want policyholders there, they can also drive that as well, right? Because they're closer to the customer. They're closer to that relationship. So certainly encourage you and your team to work with agents in those areas to try to drive folks to come to those workshops so they can be better educated, right, on this process.
100%. That's right. Yeah, pre-storm events would be great. Post-storm events too. If you have a lot of policyholders that have claims with us that are open, we want to know about that. Maybe that's where we go and set up our village, right? Maybe we work with that insurance agent to get those things handled. It's a win-win for us. It's a win-win for the agent.
It is. And buddy, as we wind this thing down, but we talk about the setting and expectation, there's so much misinformation that gets out there, right? Because of billboards and TV ads and door hangers and everything else. If we could all work together to be more proactive and better educating the policyholder, maybe the claim process will go much smoother.
That's interesting you say that, Dave. Some of the feedback that we got on our insurance villages when we started doing them, which is what kind of drove us to continue this and make it better and stronger, was a lot of the communication the policyholders would tell us would be, man, if I knew it was going to be this easy, right, I would have done this a lot earlier, right? So it is about communication. It's about constant communication. It's about just keeping them informed and being honest with them, right? There's some things that their policy won't cover. Yep. Right? And that may be a little tough of a conversation to have, but the upfront and honest conversation, they're understandable, and it's a lot smoother process when we do it that way.
Yeah. Well, buddy, I really appreciate it, sir. This is recorded, and we'll certainly, any questions we'll get to you from the audience that has anything specific about Heritage and your processes, but just recommend folks look for this information from Heritage and Buddy and his team that is out there talking about preparedness, talking about post-event, talking about communication. Encourage you to ask questions, challenge when Buddy needs to be challenged on certain things, because that's what makes the process better.
Agreed.
But thanks again. Thanks for you and the team. Thanks for being part of the FAIA Member Services preferred partner from the property side. So thanks for that partnership. Have a safe holiday. Take a day off, buddy. Matt, tell Ernie he needs Sunday off, okay?
Yeah, listen, Ernie's probably listening to this. I'm not taking a day off. No, I'm good.
Sorry, buddy. Buddy's working 7 days.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
No.
And I appreciate the opportunity, Dave. And again, if I don't mind you sharing my contact information, they can
I'll do it.
Directly.
I'll do it.
With their agent, get with one of their sales reps or marketing reps.
Okay.
And we can
all right.
do whatever. All right.
Yep. Have a great weekend. Hey, folks, just a reminder, Friday Morning Live, we record these. They're on the education page under Friday Morning Live. So if you want to pass this presentation along to a colleague there in the office, or listen to it again and pick up on some information that was said by Paul Davis or Heritage, certainly encourage that. They'll be updated probably after the holiday. And then the last thing is, May 30th, next Friday, we're having a post-legislative update. The 2025 session means for Florida agents. So certainly if you've not registered, encourage you to register for that show, BG Murphy. And it sounds like we're going to have some special guests on that show as well, along with BG. So we'll see. But have a safe holiday, folks. Be safe. Burn a hot dog. Enjoy family and friends. And this concludes this edition of Friday Morning Live. Have a great weekend.